Hey everyone, Tony Johnson here, and in today's training, I want to talk about why running 3 times a week for your first marathon is more than enough, and really anything over that is an overkill and can lead to an injury. And so, if you look at the typical marathon training plan or the typical half marathon training plan, majority of them say to run 5+ times a week. They say to run speed intervals. They say to run hills and have little to no strength training. And the reason those are designed the way they are is because they are designed by people who love to run. They've been running for years. They ran many races. They eat, sleep, and breathe and running. And so their prescription to running a marathon is to run. It is to run more. They give you the amount of mileage that they did, and they just tell you to do what they did, right? And that works if you are on that level and if you have that much experience. But the problem lies if you are brand new, if you're running your first half marathon, if you're running your first marathon, if you ran a marathon a few years ago and now you're going to get back into running. This is where the major problem lies, because running that much is what it causes you to get injured. It causes you to get burned out. You're essentially going from zero, not running at all, maybe running a tiny bit, to then going to 100 miles per hour. You're diving into the deep end of running. You're running 30, 40, 50 miles a week for months on end. And this is where the huge problem lies. The people who say that you can do that, you can if you have a lot of experience and you built up the mileage and you got accustomed to running that much. But if you're not used to that and you haven't ran a race before, or you haven't ran in a few years, this is what causes you to get injured, right? There was a study done by Yale that concluded 50% of recreational runners, you and I, get injured each year. And the number one reason was because of the training plan they were doing and the amount of running that they were doing. And so if you, let's say you're not running at all, and then you start running every single day, the injuries that will occur, most likely will occur at least, knee problems, ankle problems, feet problems like plantar fasciitis, shin splints. All these little injuries will occur. It's really because your body's just not accustomed to it yet. It's all the little joints, bones, muscles, ligaments. They're all getting tested for the first time, and they need time to recover and time to reheal before you really just keep packing on the miles. They need a break to reheal. It's kind of like a cool down effect, right? If I don't know if you guys ever played Call of Duty or some type of video game, but there's some weapons that if you shoot it a lot of times, it just overheats, and then it needs to cool down before you can use it again. Your body's the same way. You 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 put it in a certain amount of stress under certain circumstances, then your body needs to relax, reheal before it can go back into the workload that it was in. And here's the thing about injuries. They may at first not be an issue, might be a little bit of pain, a little bit of discomfort. And your mindset will be like, I can just run through this. It's not a problem. Because I've done that more times than I can count, right? Where you just have a little nagging injury. It's like, hopefully, with the ice it a little bit, a good night's sleep, it'll be fine. And then what do? You go out there and you run on it again, and then your knee, it's not didn't get any better. It's starting to get worse, and it's a compound effect, right? And then the next thing you know, you strained your knee, you pulled muscles, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And then at one point, I mean, you could even go as far as tearing it. And so I say all this to say is the issue with running 5 times a week, if you are a beginner, is that you're doing so much so fast. That's what causes your body to break down. An analogy could be like a car, for example. If you are driving, let's say, an older car or a car that hasn't been used in a long time, and then you decide to go drive it across the United States of America, well, it's probably going to have some problems. The engine just might not be up to par. The tires could be worn out. There's just a lot of issues that could could occur. And so you really have to make sure that you're strategically training, because if not, then we just talked about, you can get injured, you can get burned out just from the amount of running you're doing. And to really give you an analogy, the way I like to think about this is, if it's your very first race, you got to think of it as like, you want to start in the shallow end. You want to dip your toes in, and then you want to progress. If you're in the ocean, then you want to get your ankles wet, and then go up to your knees, and then into your hips, and then the next part, then you start to swim and you gradually increase. Well, what the problem is people will have no experience. They'll jump into the middle of the ocean, won't have snorkeling gear, won't be wearing scuba gear, won't have a wetsuit. They'll be in the middle of the ocean where there's sharks, there's a current, there's dolphins. It's the deep blue ocean, and then they're expected to figure out how to swim. And if you have no experience, well, what do you think is going to happen, right? It's not going to end well for you in the middle of the ocean. And so the only way that works is if you already have a lot of experience. The runner who runs already been running for decades, was already running 50, 100 miles a week, running that much, running 5, 6, 7 times a week, it is perfectly fine. That's like an experienced scuba diver who has already got the gear, has already made friends with all the sharks, giving them food here and there, already knows how the currents work and where all the animals could be and the dangers allied with that. They know how to navigate it because they've been there, done that, and they've have the years and years of experience. And so if you are a brand new beginner, it's your very first time, you want to start in the shallow end, and then as you progress over the years and get more experience, then you can rack up your mileage. And so if you are running your first time in your first marathon, running 3 times a week is you starting in the shallow end. Is you just kind of getting your feet wet, just feeling it out. Because number one, the benefits of running 3 times a week: one, you're already going to get your mileage in, right? You don't need to run 50, 60, 70 miles a week to run a marathon. It's really not it's not as much as you would think. I know a lot of people, they overestimate how many miles you got to run. They overdo it. It's really an overkill. And part of that is because they love to run. They get that runner's high and they just want to run, 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 and run. And so they run way, way more miles than you really need to do. And you can get way more miles than you need to, plenty of miles, just by running 3 times a week. I've done it for mini marathons. All my clients who I've trained, the dozens of them, have only ever ran 3 times a week. So it's more than enough miles already. And there are times like I wouldn't even run 3 times a week. I would replace some of my runs with walking on the Stairmaster or riding the bike. And so, 3 times a week is plenty. I can promise you that. That's it's really not an issue there. And then in terms of rest and recovery, right? Like we talked about earlier, is if you run every single day, your body is going to break down. And so it's important that you prioritize rest and you prioritize recovery, because after each run, your body's beat up, it's tired, and it needs a day or two to recover. It needs that rest. It needs to reheal. It needs to essentially cool down. And if you try to run every single day, you're not going to give your body enough time to recover, and not going to give your body enough time to rest and reheal, especially the little itty bitty muscles and the little bones that you probably aren't even really thinking about it. Those are the ones that need the most amount of recovery. And so if you run every other day, well, you give yourself that day between running to get off your feet, recover, do other activities, for example, like lifting weights. And there's a lot of benefits of lifting weights in itself, and we'll dive deep into them. But if you run every day, you don't have time to focus on strength training, because the reality is you're busy, full-time job, you got a family, and you may only have an hour to work out. Working out 2 times per day is not realistic, and so you have an hour. And if you run every day, well, that hour to lift weights isn't going to be there. And so you got to be able to strategically figure out how can you run and how can you lift. And just if you only focus on running 3 times a week, you'll be able to run enough miles, but then you can use the other 3 days a week, even up to 4 if you really want, to focus on the strength training. And going into the benefits of lifting weights is, number one, if you train properly and you do a full leg routine where you strengthen your quads, your glutes, your hamstrings, and your calves, you use heavier weights to really build up your strength, you will have the strength at the end of the race. And this is what a lot of runners, they this is where they make the mistake, right? If you run the miles, you do all your running, you will have the cardiovascular shape to run a marathon. It's really not as much as you think. Like I always say this, we were born to run, we're designed to run. If we couldn't run, the human race would be extinct. So we were literally born to run. Like this, like running 26.2 miles for your first time, it seems daunting, it seems far, and it is far, but like it takes not as much as you would think to really get yourself in a position to run that many miles. And so the issue is you'll see towards the end of the race, runners will start to break down, their legs will start to give out, they'll be in pain, their pace will be super slow, and they'll end up crossing the finish line looking like, I don't know, a zombie from The Walking Dead. And the reason is it's not because they didn't run. They obviously did. They ran every day. It's not because they weren't in cardiovascular shape. They were running, so that's not the problem. The problem was they didn't have the physical strength to maintain their pace from the earlier beginning of the race throughout the entire duration of the 13 or the 26.2 miles. Like the way I look at it is I want to be so strong that it's unreasonable for my pace to slow down at the end of the race. And you have, the only way you can really do that efficiently, especially efficiently being the key word, is you have to lift weights. You have to be strong. You have to, put some weight on the bar. You're doing the body weight exercises, the squats, the walking lunges with no weight, the HIIT workouts, the body pump, and all these like just other workouts. They're not efficient. Do they get your heart rate up? Do they get you a good workout? Sure, but in terms of building pure strength, they're really not that good. Like if you look at the professional bodybuilders of the world, the power lifters, and this is what I actually know more than a lot of the people in the running community, because before I ever got into running, this is all I did was lift weights. And I studied these bodybuilders for years and years and years, and I bought all their programs, and I had a chance to even meet some professional bodybuilders. And if you look at the way they train, if their goal is to get stronger, they're not doing HIIT workouts. Like they don't do HIIT workouts to get stronger. Like if they want to strengthen their legs, they're not going to go do a HIIT workout. They're not going to do body air squats. They're going to put weight on the bar and do squats, do the leg presses, do the deadlifts, do the heavy walking lunges. They're going to do that because that's what builds up the strength. And if you combine the strength of training with heavier weights, and I'm not super heavy where it's a 1 rep max or a 2 rep max, but sticking to the 8 to 12 rep range where it's still high volume, combined with your running of 3 times a week, that's the perfect recipe. That's the recipe of if you're a cook and you're baking up some whatever, maybe you're baking a cake, right? The ingredients that you really need to make a great cake is to have a balance between running and strength training. And then let's say you have other goals, right? Maybe you don't want to just run every day, because if you do, you're going to lose the muscle you already had, or your physique's not going to look too good, and you end up looking like a spaghetti noodle, right? You don't want that. And so lifting every single day is like, that's just not reasonable. And so doing it 3 times a week, you can still build a toned physique off 3 times a week. You're still able to strengthen the entire body, right? You do a push-pull leg split. So on Monday, you would do a push day, which is your chest, your shoulders, and your triceps. And on Wednesday, you would do a leg day, which is your quads, your glutes, your hamstrings, your calves. And then on Friday, you would do a pull day, which is your back and your biceps. And so you're still able to train every muscle group once a week, still get enough volume in. And so you're able to still have a solid physique, still look toned, still look good with your shirt off. It looked good when you look at yourself in the mirror. You see the muscle definition. If you're going for the horseshoe tricep look, you can get that. Or if you just want toned arms and toned abs, like you can easily get that just by doing 3 times a week. But you got to do the right exercises with the right volume and the right amount of weight for that to really work. But it's 100% achievable because I do it, right? I do it every year, and I've helped my clients do it. But it's just a recipe, right? If you want, going back to that cake analogy, you want to make the good cake, you got to have the right amount of ingredients. And from a lifting standpoint, you got to make sure you're doing the right exercises in the right order with the right amount of reps and sets. And that's definitely something I can help you with. And then the major benefit to lifting weights, and you can see this and you can look at any study in the world, they all talk about as you get older, it's more important to lift weights than if you were younger, right? The 18 to 19 to 20-year-old, they're lifting weights, but in reality, it's actually more important if you're 40, 50, 60, 70 to be lifting weights. And you see all the time is like some older person will be walking down the stairs and they fall and they break their hip, and you just kind of question, how is that possible? Like, that doesn't even make sense. But the reality is because they weren't doing the strength training. Their bones, muscles, joints, and ligaments were weak. They really deteriorated over the years, and to avoid that from happening, avoid your volume breaking down, avoid you just not being able to move, so you can continue to run, so you can be strong, so you can run around with your grandkids and enjoy the last several years of your life, is you have to be strong. And the best way, like I said, to get strong is by lifting weights, because all the other exercises aren't that efficient, right? The body squats, the HIIT workouts, all those workouts, like, they're really just not that efficient if you compare it apples to apples. And so when you get older, it's actually more important to lift heavier weights than it is to, well, one, not do anything, but even if you're younger. And so I say also to say what I recommend if you're training for your first half, or you're training for your first full marathon, or if you haven't ran a marathon in a few years and you want to get back into the running, the training plan I recommend is running 3 times a week and strength training 3 times a week, alternating between each days. So you would start off, let's say on a Monday, you're in the gym lifting weights, and then on Tuesday you go for a run. On Wednesday, you're back in the gym lifting weights, doing a leg day. On Thursday, you're doing a run, could be a shorter run. On Friday, you're back into the gym lifting weights, maybe you're doing a pull day, and then on Saturday, you do your long run. So you have 3 days of running, 3 days of lifting, and you're alternating in between the two. That is a perfect recipe. If you want to create a great cake, where you're on some TV show of how to bake great cakes, well, that's the recipe you want to use. That's the ingredients to make your great cake. And so if you're confused, if you have questions about, well, how far should I run, or what type of run should I do, or what strength training, or what exercises, or whatever the questions are, I can help you out. I've helped dozens and dozens of runners train for races. I've helped some clients get first place on their very first half marathon. I've helped them run half and full marathons injury free. I've helped all types of people. And so if you are looking for help, I do offer one-on-one coaching until your race. So if your race is in 4 months, I can help you on a one-on-one basis where we're working together. I can personalize your half and full marathon training plan, where I create completely for you, so you don't have to do any research. You don't have to talk to other people. You don't have to really do anything. I just give it to you based on a few questions I'll have for you. And then in terms of the strength training workouts, like I said, this is what I know more than just about anyone in this running community. I'll put my money on that one. I can customize your strength training workouts. Make sure you're doing the right exercises in the right order. Make sure you have proper form. There's a lot of runners I help who have zero experience with lifting weights. I've never been in the gym before, have no idea what to do. And the way I've designed my coaching program is to make it very beginner friendly, have videos so they know exactly how to do each exercise in the order and the reason why you want to do it in that order, with the amount of reps and the sets. And so it's all very laid out, A to Z, very beginner friendly. And then also, in terms of like a strategy, you want to go into your race with a strategy. If you just try to run your race and you just wake up the day of and go out there and run, it's not going to end well. You won't be properly fueled. You won't be properly hydrated. You could cramp up. And so to make sure that you do well in your race, you can finish it with a time you're happy of, you can finish it strong, you can finish it injury free, is you got to have a race day strategy. And I'll create that for you, because running a half or full marathon really starts 2 days prior, and you got to make sure you got everything dialed in: your nutrition, what you're eating, what you're drinking, the strategies on the run, right? Your pacing strategies, your water drinking strategies. All those need to be dialed in if you want to do really good on your marathon and enjoy the experience. And so I can help you with that. And then, like I said, food's extremely important. If you're think of your body like a car, right? If you fill your, like, well, example, I'll give you an example. If, let's say, your body, we'll use the analogy, your body is a car. If you just fill up a Volkswagen or a minivan with regular gas. Like that's all it really needs for that type of car. But the reality is your body is more of a sports car. It's a Lamborghini, it's a Ferrari. It doesn't work with regular gas. It needs that top tier premium gas. And if you look at foods, right, you have the basic foods, the McDonald's, the Taco Bells, the fast food, the processed foods, which is really not good for you. It's going to make you feel sick and sluggish. And then you got the higher end foods, the lean chickens, the healthier foods that are grass fed. Those are the type of foods you got to eat if you want to have the energy and really just feel good about just the way you operate in your workouts and in your runs. You got to make sure you're eating the right foods, and I can create all that for you. I can have your meal plan dialed up so you know exactly what foods to eat for every single meal of the day. Because that's going to make a huge difference. Like, good luck running a 26.2 miles if you had McDonald's that morning. Like, it's not gonna go too well, And then on top of that this isn't just a set and forget type program. Is I'm constantly in communication with you on a weekly basis with tech support, emails, on calls. So we're in communication. I'm able to make adjustments. If, for example, for strength training, right? One of the things that, just speaking from personal experiences, my hamstrings have always been the weaker muscle in my body. And when I'm running, especially the long distances, that comes back to bite me in the butt. And so what I did, speaking just for the Austin Marathon, is instead of doing just a leg workout that hit all angles of my legs, I would create strictly hamstring isolated workouts where I would only train hamstrings. I was doing the good mornings, the Romanian deadlifts, the leg presses with your feet high and tight. And so I was only isolating my hamstrings to get them stronger because I didn't want them to be my Achilles heel per se at the end of the race. And so I'm able to make those adjustments based on where you're at with your training and what you need help with to really get your strength training and your running dialed in, so you're able to run your marathon or your half marathon, finish it strong and finish it injury free. Most important, because like I said, if you get injured, well, good luck. Like, you're gonna have to pull out of the race. You're gonna get discouraged. You're gonna lose confidence. You're gonna have to go back to the drawing board and start all over. And then on top of that, as a bonus, I call it the health and fitness playbook. I created an entire program around just A to Z of everything you know about health and fitness, of the eating, the strength training, the running, the recovery, everything over the decade I've spent really studying health and fitness. And you can just have that as a bonus and learn that really on your own time. The way I look at my program is I want it to be a thing where you get the information up front. I give it to you so you succeed, and then you are able to learn the skills so they last a lifetime. Like, have you ever heard the saying, you give a man a fish, he eats for a day, you teach a man a fish, he eats for life? Well, it's the same thing here. I'll give you the fish so you eat tonight, but then I'll teach you how to fish so you have the skills that last a lifetime. And then if maybe we're on a call and you're a little skeptical about the process, you have essentially a 7-day free trial guarantee where you can come into the program. I'll build out your training plan, whether it's half or full marathon. I'll build out your strength training workouts and your nutrition plans, and then you can test drive it for 7 days. And if you like it, cool, you're in the program. We can continue working together. And if not, no worries. You're able to just keep your training plan and go about your business and just get a refund. And so it's essentially a 7-day no risk guarantee. And so if this is something you're interested in, there'll be a button below this video where you can click on it and book a call with me. We'll talk about 45 minutes, just ask you some questions about what you need help with, your goals, and just what you're currently doing. And if I can help, I'm more than happy to walk you through what we got going on over here and how I can help you with your training. And if not, no worries. Like, this isn't a high pressure call. I'll point you in a different direction. I have no incentive to sell you on this, because if it doesn't work, well, then, you just get your money back. And so that I would never force you into a decision. So if this is something you're interested in, there'll be a button below. Click it, schedule a time for us to talk. There'll be a couple additional questions, and I look forward to speaking with you. Have a good day.